What is going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Hopefully, everybody's week is off to a good start. Welcome to another episode of Facemask Fantasy. We've got week 7, week 6 is in the books. It was a weird week in football. Yet another week with a lot of injuries, so we're currently navigating that minefield. Taking a look at some of the likely top options on the waiver wire for you today, and then, of course, any AMA that you may possibly want to bring up. As always, it's a little early in the week for start sit help, so I would advise that if you have start sit questions to wait. Streams will be Thursday, for Saturday, Sunday this week. More catered, more geared towards start sit help when we have more information about practice reports, injury updates, all that good stuff. But everything waiver wire and anything as a result of the fallout of week 6 is on the table today. Lots of injuries at quarterback. We've lost Justin Fields probably for at least a couple of weeks. There's concern that there's greater damage in one of the ligaments of his thumb that could lead to an extended absence. So waiting to see on what happens there. The news is so far optimistic about the 49ers, who all missed time and or, were just ruled out of the rest of the game against the Browns week 6. Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Trent Williams, for what's worth, a major part of their offense. None of those injuries are expected to be long-term. They play on Monday night this week, so the extra day probably should help their progress in being able to play against the Vikings. McCaffrey's dealing with an oblique. Debo's dealing with it could be a joint, like an AC joint sprain, something in the shoulder. X-rays were negative. Brandon Ayuk suffered a similar shoulder injury in week 2 this year, and he missed week 3. He missed one game, but that was on a short week for the 49ers. This time around for them, they play on Monday night, so they actually have a little bit more time this time around for their guys to get right. We'll keep an eye on that one. The bigger running back injuries, at least as far as the impact on week 7, are to that of David Montgomery of the Lions and Kyren Williams of the Rams. Montgomery sounds like he suffered a rib injury. He's already sounding like he's going to miss week 7, and he could miss a couple of weeks there. The other side of that coin is that Jahmyr Gibbs, again, it's early in the week, but he's trending in the right direction. So if he's able to suit up, he's missed the past couple of weeks with an injury of his own. But if Gibbs is able to come back, perhaps the Lions have no choice but to feature him without Montgomery. So Craig Reynolds will mix in for them as well. But tentatively, we can expect Gibbs to kind of take over backfield duties for at least the short term while Montgomery recovers from the rib injury. And then with Kyren Williams, it's being called an ankle injury. While it sounds like it's not a long-term concern, it feels like we can already kind of expect he's not going to play week 7. The Rams have been busy. They added, because Ronnie Rivers is also expected to be out for a little while. They have Zach Evans on the roster. They signed Myles Gaskin off of, I think it was the Vikings practice squad. They brought in Royce Freeman. They brought in Darrell Henderson, an old face for them, added him to their practice squad. So it's kind of like a musical chairs, hot hand situation, or that's what it's shaping up to be for the Rams backfield, at least week 7, and possibly for another week after that. We'll have to see what happens with Kyren Williams. And then in the Thursday night game, Trevor Lawrence dealing with a knee injury. He was listed as a non-participant in Monday's practice. The Jags did not practice, but they still have to put out an injury report. This is, y'all know this at this point. Teams playing on Thursday night don't actually practice on Monday. They list an estimation of what would have happened with each individual player had they actually practiced. Lawrence was listed as a non-participant Monday, but in an actual practice today, he got in a limited session. Told reporters after practice that he's optimistic he'll be able to play Thursday, but short week, not a lot of time to get right. Will be operating at less than 100% if he goes. We'll have to keep monitoring that situation, and I will be live Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, before the game, in the event that there's anything we have to go over as it pertains to Trevor Lawrence and his availability. So if you've got any implications or stakes there, feel free to tune in or try to tune in, and we can sort that out. Depending on the updates, tomorrow's practice for Trevor Lawrence will be important. But I guess as of right now, he is trending in the right direction. That only means so much on a short week on Thursday night. A couple other quarterback injuries. Ryan Tannehill suffered what looks to be a high ankle sprain in London. They're sitting at 2-4. Yes, the Colts have opted for likely, I don't think it's officially happened yet, but likely season-ending surgery for Anthony Richardson, with the long view of the most and best interest of not just Richardson, but the Colts itself. All that to say, maybe this Colts season officially isn't going anywhere anytime fast, and that's just because without Richardson. But Tennessee has been passed in the division by Houston, already by Jacksonville this year. But I think it's fair to say Houston is now on the proper trajectory back toward competing regularly with CJ Stroud. Titans' arrow is trending down for this year. They're sitting at 2-4, and they just lost Tannehill. Now they get to choose between, Malik Willis and Will Levis as far as who's going to suit up for them and start at quarterback. It's not looking good for that situation in general. To that point, though, my silver lining there is give the ball to Tajay Spears. See what don't just see what you have in your quarterback. See what you have in all of the young guys on your roster, and that includes Tajay Spears. So hopefully he's already on your roster. I've been suggesting pick him up if he's available for a couple of weeks now. Yes, they are on bye, so maybe be on the lookout to see if somebody like Spears gets dropped by a team because they have a need now for this week to fill out their starting lineup this week. So keep an eye on that. If Spears is still available, you're not going to need to probably spend a whole lot of fob on him with the Titans being on bye this week, but do still try to scoop him up. And on the off chance that he's owned and gets dropped because of bye week needs, keep an eye on that one as well. If he becomes available, pick him up. Jimmy Garoppolo, Baker Mayfield also suffered minor injuries. It doesn't sound like anything super serious there. But we'll see what happens if Brian Hoyer has to step in for the Raiders in Week 7. That's the injury roundup. We can go through the pickups as a result of all of those injuries and what the fallout is for each one. And we'll go from there. What's going on, Crumply Heads? That Tajay Spears start didn't turn out so bad. Like right at the end, he made a big play there. He made a big pop. Hang on to that guy. Hang on to Tajay Spears. If you have Tajay Spears, drop anybody else if you need somebody because of bye week issues. This is a busy bye week. There's going to be a decent amount of players on bye. I know the Bengals are on bye this week. The Jets are on bye this week. The Titans, just mentioned them. They're on bye this week. There's a couple others. The Cowboys are on bye this week. And the Texans are on bye this week. So it's a pretty bye week heavy week. So keep an eye on the waiver wire. Keep an eye on who gets dropped tomorrow or Thursday if your league runs waivers on Thursday. Keep a sharp eye out. There's lots of teams on bye this week. So a guy like, I don't know that I necessarily expect it to happen, but if a Tajay Spears gets dropped because of starting lineup needs with so many teams on bye, keep an eye out for something like that. If that flies under the radar Friday, Saturday, whenever guys, who get dropped tomorrow become eligible to be picked up in your league, keep that one in mind. Keep that one in mind. What's going on, Greg? Good to see you too, man. That's a sparkling, nice little undefeated record you got there. Nicely done. I had a decent week. It didn't hit in every single area, but on the whole, I'm doing all right. I have one team that started off 0-3 and has since won 3 straight, and it's gotten healthy. I got Jonathan Taylor back. Got Breece Hall's rounding into form. I got Saquon back this past Sunday. Things are coming together nicely after a after a bit of a slow start. Okay, I went over the injury fallout, guys to monitor this week. Let's see if Jeff Wilson can suit up. Aaron Jones, the Packers signed James Robinson. Don't know if that means if Aaron Jones still isn't quite ready to play yet, so keep an eye on that. Deontay Johnson, Pat Fryermuth, the Steelers opened the practice window for both of those guys. Same for Jamal Williams of the Saints. And again, Jahmyr Gibbs is reportedly trending in the right direction. So guys that have either missed time recently, last week, or over the course of several weeks, some names to keep an eye on. And then, of course, we'll go through some of the top options to add this week. I see a start-sit question right at the top. I mean, tentatively, probably just those first four. Tuesdays are tough to really get it. It's tough to really get into any type of nitty gritty or analysis for start sit early in the week. Before we actually get practice reports, or practice and injury reports, which will start rolling in tomorrow. Olave is the Thursday night game, so I think he had 6 for 87, unless he did anything else after I saw that in week 6 against Houston. Did he have more than that? Either way, that's rock solid. That 7 for 96. Okay, so he had an extra catch in there. So I saw 6 for 87. He finished 7 for 96. I mean, that should be ho hum, and usually is a ho hum type of week for Chris Olave, which just goes to show how valuable he is. He's logged limited practices Monday and Tuesday. You probably just fire him up Thursday night. Well, not probably. If he's active, you're firing up Chris Olave. Everybody else, we gotta, let's let the week shake out. Let's see what practice reports look like. And if there are any adds to the injury report, we want to keep an eye on that. Start sit questions are a little more easily answered on Thursdays. And then, of course, I'll have my start sit streams Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern, Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, when we have about as much information as we possibly can have going into the slate of games. As far as the trade question, you're trying to trade for T. Higgins, and you want to give up Addison and Hunt. I don't know that I would give up Addison right now. And while Kareem Hunt, if you want to sell high on Kareem Hunt off of a strong, and let's call a spade, unexpected good performance this past week, it's understandable, but I don't know that I want to give up Addison. Higgins is obviously the more proven and accomplished player here, and he's in the better situation, in the better offense, but he's dealing with the rib injury. It limited him clearly in week 6. He only had 2 catches for 20 yards on 4 targets. Luckily, he does have the bye week to rest up a little bit here, so that's positive. That's a good thing, but Higgins, he blew up week 2, but he hasn't done anything else the rest of this season. Meanwhile, Addison has been more consistent and is the guy for at least the next 3 games, and it's not inconceivable that he's the guy for longer than that. I'll keep saying it till I'm blue in the face. I am very concerned about the availability for the rest of the season of Justin Jefferson. He could come back eventually, not just recovery from the injury, but also because he's a superstar. And when superstars are healthy, you play your superstars. But the Vikings season, they got to win against Chicago. Good for them. They got to win. They improved to 2-4. Okay. They get the 49ers on Monday Night Football, and then I think they get a couple of road games after that. If they can string some wins together here, if they can go 2-1 over their next 3 games, then okay, fine. We can have some optimism about Justin Jefferson. But if the Vikings season if they continue to pile up losses, tough matchup against San Francisco this week. I think Green Bay and Atlanta are back-to-back road games for them. So those are tough spots as well. If the Vikings aren't playing for anything later in the season, they're not going to force Justin Jefferson onto the field recovering from a soft tissue injury that reportedly it's not cut and dry to the point where it's like, yeah, he's going to go on IR, he's going to miss these 4 games, then he's definitely back week 11. We don't know that. I don't know that I would do that. I don't know that I would do that. I'm not exactly dying to acquire T. Higgins, especially when I'm the one who has to give up the 2-for-1. Addison has been performing. Higgins, outside of week 2, has not performed, and he's hurt. I'm not sure I'm crazy about that one, to be honest. I'd probably just hold Addison, especially because Higgins is on bye this week. Addison is healthy and the top guy for the Vikings for at least the next 3 games. So yeah, I imagine I'm gonna get a lot of questions about Trevor Lawrence. Tomorrow's practice is big, and he got a limited session in today, so that's good. If he's able to practice at least on a limited basis tomorrow, that's good. But again, with these Thursday night games and these injuries that are like, they have you up against it, it's tough to say until we truly know, until they actually announce it, which is not going to be until about an hour and a half before kickoff on Thursday. Is Trevor Lawrence active? If he's active on the road in a tough spot, I think you have to start him. Especially, Greg, if you're in a situation where your alternative is Deshaun Watson. We don't know if he's going to play either. If Lawrence plays and if Lawrence is active, if he gets fired up, if he starts, regardless of what the practice reports are for Deshaun Watson, because they've been positive this season, only for it to end up in him being ruled out a couple of times. Now, last week, he was ruled out a little bit sooner than in week 5, but in week 5, it was like, oh, he's going to play. And then about a half hour, maybe an hour before kickoff, he was surprisingly ruled out, and the Browns had to completely change their game plan, and they did nothing on offense that day because they had to start DTR in a pinch with less than pretty much a couple of hours. Maybe that was how much they had to prepare and plan, which is not enough time. So we can't really rely on any practice reports for Deshaun Watson right now either until we see him, made active or listed as active, removed from the injury report. Until that actually happens and we see him suit up, we can't have a whole lot of confidence in Deshaun Watson either. So if Trevor Lawrence is ruled in, you have to play Lawrence. And I would say that includes guys on the wire. Geno Smith, Matt Stafford, Sam Howell, who Sam Howell is going to be a trendy waiver wire pickup this week. He had a really nice game in a tough matchup against Atlanta. Seemingly has another really good spot against the Giants, even though that is a division game. I got to start Trevor Lawrence all over all of those guys. I have to. I know he hasn't exactly set the world on fire this year, but he hasn't been so terrible to the point where I actually have to reconsider him. It hasn't been great, but this past week against Indianapolis, he was the QB 11. He's only been a top 12 QB twice this year, so it obviously hasn't worked out as well as we hoped it would, at least to start. But with the weapons he has and the game script expected going on the road against the Saints, you probably have to fire him up if he goes. What's going on, Nemo? Good to see you, man. As far as defensive streams at this point, if the Browns are available, you probably just need to pick them up. They are the best defense in the NFL. That doesn't always necessarily translate to fantasy, but it doesn't hurt. They are the top unit in the league. You can look at any metric. If the Browns are available as a defensive stream, you might need to just pick them up, and you can probably just keep firing them up, unless it's like on the road in Kansas City or Buffalo or an obvious spot where it's like, okay, this is not ideal. you probably can just if you can get the Browns, if they are on waivers, just grab them, um, and you can keep firing them up. You can just fire them up. They are really good. The Browns are really, really good. They are really, really good. I don't know who I like them over. I don't know. I don't know which defenses I like more than them rest of season overall. But what I do know is they are the best defense in the NFL. And if they are available, you might as well grab them. If they are available, you might as well grab them. Let's see. I have a trade question here. Um, you received Derrick Henry. You gave up Taylor and Curtis Samuel. I'd rather have Taylor. Now, I've been a guy. I have been. My members will tell you, or anybody who listened to me over the course of the offseason, I have been pounding the table for Jonathan Taylor all offseason. I thought he was a steal at cost. Now, of course, he missed the first 4 games. Did not anticipate that one, but the arrow is pointing up on him now that he is paid. I know Zach Moss had yet another good game, but Taylor was a big contributor in the receiving game on Sunday against Jacksonville. So that was great to see. They just gave him a brand new contract and he's healthy. Before long, as he gets his sea legs under him, Taylor will, we can go back to expecting Taylor to be a top 10 to 12 running back for the rest of the season. Henry, meanwhile, has he's off to the faster start because he actually started the season playing. He's on the worst team, though. They just lost their quarterback. They just lost Ryan Tannehill. They're going to turn to either Malik Willis or Will Levis for probably at least the next few games. It's being reported that Tannehill suffered a high ankle sprain. That's generally a 4 to 6 week injury. That offense is about to go in the tank, and Tajay Spears is regularly getting involved. Now, Derrick Henry is still, I'm not doubting Derrick Henry as an individual talent because he's still that dude. 12 carries, 97 yards, and a touchdown in a tough matchup. So, like, you know what you can possibly get in Derrick Henry any given week, but he's not as bulletproof as he has been the past couple of seasons. He's older now. This is not a good Titans team. They're 2-4, and they just lost their quarterback. I'd rather have Taylor. I'd rather have the younger player in the slightly better situation. And Curtis Samuel he's not just a throwaway. He's a big part of that Washington offense. He's blowing the doors off Jahan Dotson right now. Jahan Dotson is doing nothing. It's not Dotson. He's struggling. It's Curtis Samuel. He's the guy who's involved. Dotson he did nothing. He had one target and didn't catch it week 6. He goose egged, which is just bottoming out on a so far abysmal season. He has not done anything. Curtis Samuel is the guy in that offense opposite Terry McLaurin who is contributing. Yeah, I'd rather have Taylor and Samuel. For the rest of the season, I'd rather have Taylor and Samuel. I would rather have Jonathan Taylor than Derrick. If I had Derrick Henry and somebody offered me Jonathan Taylor 1-for-1, I would do that. Getting Curtis Samuel on top of that that's a nice little bonus. I'd rather have the Taylor side. I would. I'd rather have the Taylor side. What's going on, AB? Good to see you, man. Nemo Olave on Thursday night or Christian Watson. Yeah, I hate Thursday night. I hate Thursday night football in most scenarios. It's a pain in the ass to try to figure it out. The short week usually feels like it's detrimental more times than it's not. If your gut is telling you to start Christian Watson, that's fine. But if Olave is active, they're at home. I know that Thursday night, whatever. How much of an equalizer even is that? Um, if Olave is in the lineup, I don't think I can pull him out of my own starting lineup. If he's in the Saints starting lineup, then I think he needs to be in my starting lineup. Yeah, I hate Thursday night football. If your gut is telling you to pivot off because of Thursday night, he is on the injury report with I think it's a toe injury he's dealing with right now. Um, if you're not feeling that situation, I totally understand. I don't think I can pull him out of my lineup, though. Who do the Packers have? Who they got this week? Packers are playing. Oh, man, they're on the road against Denver. Well, that is the type of matchup that is difference making enough where you might actually want to, find a way to get every single Packer into your starting lineup. The Broncos are historically awful. Um, feels like everybody is feasting against them these days. They have, the number of points they've allowed has gone down 4 straight weeks from 70. Week 4, 28. Week 5, 23. Week 6 against Kansas City. That was on a Thursday night, but they only scored 19 points. So I don't know. Maybe they're improving a little bit, or maybe not. They still lost. It's a great matchup for anybody. If there anyone who's playing the Denver Broncos, you want to get your players into your lineup. Uh Nemo, if you are able to come back on Thursday, like when we have a little bit more of a vibe on Chris Olave, we can try to rehash it. But I don't hate the call. I don't if you're like, I don't like this Thursday night situation, and Watson is in a great matchup. It's understandable. It's understandable to want to pivot and play Watson. It's just tough benching Olave. That's all. He's just one of those dudes that sometimes you just fire him up. Not sometimes. He's one of those dudes where he's like bulletproof. Let's see. Wilson's out. Debo's on the injury report. Amari, London, Nico. I'm not dropping those guys for those 4 names. No. I like Curtis Samuel. If possible, get him onto your roster if you could use some wide receiver help. But and I like Dubs as well. He's certainly got, I think he was just a bye week casualty. He should be on rosters. But Amari Cooper, Drake London, Nico Collins, those guys are good enough to get it done for you. Amari Cooper came through with PJ Walker playing, so I guess Amari Cooper is fine if it's PJ Walker, but if it has to be Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who is not quite ready yet as a 7th round pick, he's just not quite ready yet to contribute. If he has to go, then you bench everybody. But if PJ Walker goes, then I guess, you can fire up Amari Cooper. And then, London and Nico. Like I said, I like all 4 of those names, but I'm not starting any one of them over London or Nico. Now, Nico's on bye this week. So what you might want to do, because the 49ers play on Monday Night Football, is just hold out on Debo, and if he can't play, then maybe grab Who is it? It's not Jawan Jennings anymore, is it? What's their depth chart look like? Yeah, Jawan Jennings. Yeah, I would probably do that, Greg. I would just hold out for Debo, hope he can play, and if he can't, I assume Jawan Jennings is available on waivers, and I don't think anybody's going to pick him up because he's playing on Monday Night Football, and he's a guy that you want to wait out for, that you want to hold out for. Is Elijah Moore a drop? He might be. If you can grab, you know, whether it's one of these running backs like Craig Reynolds or maybe not Zach Evans, but if Tajay Spears is still out there, he probably isn't. But if you want to grab Jordan Mason just in case, Craig Reynolds because David Montgomery is expected to miss some time. I can't advocate for adding Elijah Mitchell. I can't do it. Just as a precaution in case McCaffrey has to miss a game. I guess Evans will lead the Rams backfield, but like I don't know. Like, do they let Darrell Henderson get involved a little bit more than we might expect because he's familiar with the system? Does Myles Gaskin get in there? Does Royce Freeman get in there? I think Royce Freeman is somewhat familiar with it. He played for McVay at some point, I feel like. But yeah, Elijah Moore is a draw. Like if you want Rashee Rice, like I said, if Tajay Spears is out there, who else are some interesting names? Curtis Samuel. If you want to drop Elijah Moore for Curtis Samuel, that's fine. Josh Downs, Keontae Ingram. Hell, there's probably a good chance like Brandon Cooks is out there. If all else fails, he scored a touchdown on Monday night last night. Oh, you need a quarterback. Okay, yeah. I mean, it all depends on what you need. But if you need a quarterback because you lost Fields and Elijah Moore is your odd man out, then yeah. I mean, whether it's Sam Howell or Stafford or whoever's out there, whoever's available. Sam Howell is the trendy quarterback ad right now. I will just caution they do get the Giants this week. And while that's not a scary matchup on paper per se, it is a division game. Division games are funky. That being said, the Commanders did score 31 in another division game against the Eagles just a couple of weeks ago. So maybe not as big of a deal there. Plus, if you just need a quarterback, that's a pretty good spot. That's a pretty good matchup. And Howell has been a top 15 quarterback. I mean, in 5 of the 6 of his 6 games played. So, yeah, if Howell's out there, go ahead. If Howell's out there, go ahead. Dylan is also droppable, but maybe like a little less so, at least because you have Aaron Jones. And yeah, I would, if Howell is out there and you need a quarterback, you might as well grab him. Is Michael Mayer worth an ad? I mean, he's definitely a stash. If you're streaming tight ends, who the Raiders get this week? If you're starting an obvious name at tight end, then obviously you keep it moving. Oh, they get the Bears this week. Interesting. The thing with Mayer is this was far and away his best performance this past week. 5 catches for 75 yards. Prior to that, the previous 5 weeks combined, he has 3 catches for 41 yards. 2 of those came in just one game. He has not recorded a catch in 3 of the 6 games played. He exploded last week, 5 for 75. That's awesome. Could that trend continue? Yeah, sure. They're playing the Bears. The Bears are bad everywhere. So is it conceivable that Mayer has another good week? Second straight good week? Yeah. But I don't know that I'm necessarily like I don't you're not firing him up again. I don't think I don't think you're firing him up. Not yet. Not yet. And I think the long-haired version of me is dead and buried. That was a phase. I didn't hate it. It happened. It's over. I don't know that that one's coming back. Something a little unexpected would probably have to happen for me to consider that. I'd have to lose a pretty epic bet, something like that. Let's see. Just going on back up to the top. Um, there's a bunch of guys available on waivers. Mason, Evans, Samuel, Smith, and I guess it's not unsurprising if Smith and Jigba's available on waivers. I still want to. I'm waiting a few more weeks, even if it's like goose egg after goose egg the next couple of weeks. I don't think I can drop him yet. So Elijah Moore is a drop. Jaleel McLaughlin is interesting, but I see you have Spears, and I am advocating hard not to drop Tajay Spears. I want to hang on. I want to hang on to Tajay Spears. Yeah, like McLaughlin had a couple of nice weeks, weeks 4 and 5. That was those were the weeks where one, Javonte went down, and two, he missed week 5. So McLaughlin put up some really good performances, but then in a full-blown committee when Javonte returned week 6 on Thursday night, he had 7 carries for 30 yards and 2 catches for 12 yards. Back to being, a low-end RB3, high-end RB4. So Elijah Moore is a drop. McLaughlin is a drop. Najee's not a drop, but he's not usable right now. And then, of course, it all depends on what you need. Do you need any of these guys to fire up for this week? I would probably say I want Smith and Jigba above all because I want to roll the dice on the upside. He is the ceiling ad. If you have no immediate needs for this week, then Smith and Jigba is the ceiling ad, the guy with all the upside and the guy that I would want. If you need a guy this week, then I'll probably roll the dice on Curtis Samuel. I just don't know how much I can trust any one of these running backs. Like, I don't know if Kareem Hunt will be able to have 2 good performances in a row at this stage in his career. I can't advocate for Elijah Mitchell. Jordan Mason is interesting, but it sounds like the vibes are good on Christian McCaffrey as far as him not suffering a long-term injury. And then Zach Evans for the Rams, like, I guess he's expected to lead this backfield. That could mean a lot of different things. Lead this backfield could still only mean 8 or 9 touches. Maybe he gets more than that. Maybe he gets to 12 to 15. Will he be effective with them? Playing Pittsburgh, that's a tougher matchup. They're coming off their bye week. I would say Smith and Jigba is your upside ad. Elijah Moore and or McLaughlin are fine to drop for him. I'd much rather have JSN. If you don't have immediate needs, Smith and Jigba is my upside waiver ad if he is available. If you need a guy this week, I would say Curtis Samuel. If you need a wide receiver, definitely Curtis Samuel. And then I guess I would say drop McLaughlin for Curtis Samuel, and then if you need a flex, I mean, I can't start Smith and Jigba yet, but I do want to add him. Seahawks get the Cardinals this week. That's a good matchup. Even though Smith and Jigba is still behind Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf in the pecking order. And so while I want to add him, I don't want to start him this week. So I guess I would add Curtis Samuel. Honestly, I would add Smith and Jigba as well, and then like we'll figure out the start. We'll figure out that other starting spot like later in the week. I would drop McLaughlin for Curtis Samuel since you need the wide receiver now, and then yeah, I would drop Elijah Moore for Smith and Jigba. Um, However you want to prioritize that because Samuel is a guy that you can play this week if you need him. I don't think you can say the same about Smith and Jigba, even though he remains at least of when you're talking about names like this. This is the collection of guys that we're comparing him to. He easily has the most upside for the rest of the season. Will that come to fruition? That's another conversation, but he has the highest ceiling of these guys. But Samuel for sure if you need to play this week. And then Seahawks, Commanders, Raiders defense. Who do the I know I already looked this up. Who do the Raiders have this week? The Bears on the road. Tentatively, I like the Seahawks matchup because they're of these three teams. Again, I sometimes do this to a fault. Whether it actually works out or not is another question. When I'm streaming defenses, the first thing I try to find outside of like a favorable matchup is are they playing at home? You know, the only defenses I'm comfortable playing on the road, and this obviously isn't always foolproof. Obviously, random performances happen all the time, regardless of location. It's just when I'm streaming a defense, I feel much more comfortable about that defense when they're at home. I only want to start a defense on the road if I know that they are awesome. If they're one of those top flight defenses where it's just like, I don't care what the matchup is and I don't care where the game is being played, that's one thing. But when I'm streaming defenses, one of the things I'm trying to look for is are they playing at home? And of these three options, that's the Seahawks. They're playing Arizona at home. It's been a favorable matchup for opposing defenses. I'd probably play Seattle. I'd probably try to fire up Seattle if you can get them. But if the Browns are available, add the Browns because they're one of those defenses officially where they're a really strong NFL defense. Doesn't always translate to fantasy, but sometimes it does. I believe they're on the road this week, but they have entered the conversation of if you have them, if you're able to get them, they've entered the conversation of I don't care where they're playing. The Browns are really good defense. 3 more sacks this past week against San Francisco and an interception. I mean, it's pretty damn good. 3 sacks and a pick. If I told you your streaming defense is gonna allow less than 20 points and they should get 3 sacks and at least 1 turnover, you'll take that. You'll take that. But if Cleveland's not available, then a team like Seattle is a fine stream this week. Who holds more value between Tank Dell or Romeo Dubs? Tank Dell is on bye this week, but he missed last week with a concussion. He's expected back week 8. Dubs is now past his bye. And isn't coming off of a concussion. I guess I would say Dubs. It's close. I wouldn't say there's a particularly big gap between the two of them. Like Tank Dell, the argument in Tank Dell's favor is that Stroud looks great and the Texans are going to be throwing the ball all season long. One, because it's going to help Stroud's development, and 2, they kind of need to because their defense is pretty up and down. They did have a good game on Sunday against New Orleans. But they're still unproven and they're still in it. Like on the whole, a pretty inexperienced defense. So they're going to take their lumps. Um, Potential for volume and favorable game script probably goes to Tank Dell, but I think Dubs, at least in PPR leagues, has a little bit more value. And now that because now he's past his bye week and he's not coming off a concussion. Like, that's just how it goes. We have to, obviously this fluctuates week to week, but Tank Dell suffered a concussion. Expected back week 8. That's awesome. But it's something we have to be mindful of for a little while here, for at least another couple of weeks. Whereas Dubs is not on the injury report, and now he's the one who's actually passed his bye. You can fire Dubs up this week, whereas we have to wait until week 8 for Tank Dell. So I guess I would give the slight edge to Dubs, but it is close. It is close. Let's see. How do I feel about Christian Watson rest of season? He's a wide receiver too. Passed his bye, so that's great. Ceiling is incredibly high. Number of targets hasn't been particularly high so far, but that's okay. He's only played a couple of games. I would put him at around a wide receiver too. Big time upside. The floor is going to be low because of his high variance. He's a little boom bust, but he's a very talented boom bust. Like, he is a guy that you are looking to get into your lineup. Can and will make big plays, but is susceptible to not a lot of targets, not a lot of catches. Like, he's not a PPR guy. He's someone that you are relying on for big plays. To that point, you want him in your lineup. But he's going to be susceptible to low floor games. High ceiling, low floor. Should be a pretty good wide receiver 2 rest of season. But I can't call him a wide receiver 1. Yeah, can't call him a wide receiver 1. Smith-Njigba and Wan'Dale Robinson are available. You can certainly drop Dotson for either one of those guys. I would suggest, if you don't need anybody now, I would suggest Smith-Njigba. I know that it hasn't happened for him yet. He's going to stay behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett most likely this year. But if anything happens, he's the one with the most upside. And it's still possible. It's not out of the realm of possibility that, as he's getting his bearings in the NFL, and as he's getting his experience and taking his lumps, and each practice, each day, as he continues to get better, this, that, and the other thing, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Smith-Njigba just forces the Seahawks' hand and has to become more involved in this offense. That hasn't happened yet, but it's possible it still could. He is the upside guy on waivers if he is available in your league. Is the floor still low? Yeah, the floor is still low. The floor has been pretty close to not that, to nothing for Smith-Njigba. His best performance was last week. He was the wide receiver 49. 4 catches for 48 yards. So the involvement is sort of there. I would bet on the upside if I can, but obviously you can't rely on him right now. And then as far as Wandale, I missed it. Actually, I admit I missed a decent portion of that Sunday night game. Um, oh, he had an okay 8 for 62. Okay, now there's a guy. I mean, he missed the first 2 weeks of the season, but he has at least 4 catches in every game this year. He has at least 5 catches in 3 of the 4 games, and his best output 8 for 62 on Sunday night against Buffalo. Yeah, I mean, I probably would. Until if Deshaun Watson is back, then that makes Elijah Moore a little bit more enticing. But until we see a healthy Deshaun Watson, it's understandable not wanting to hold anybody not named Amari Cooper for that Browns offense. So yeah, I am fine with if you want to move off of certainly Jahan Dotson. If you want to move off Jahan Dotson, that's fine. But if you want to move off Elijah Moore as well to get both of those guys, to get Smith and Jigba and Wandale Robinson, that's fine with me. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Bit light so far today. That's okay. I think I think I've taken all questions so far in the chat. So before I move forward with anything else, I already talked about the injuries and the fallout from the injuries of this week, so I can go over some of the official top options that are likely available on waivers that you can consider. Now, obviously, if a player like Jackson Smith and Jigba is available on waivers, he would be a top guy for me as long as you don't have immediate needs for your starting lineup. Um, if you do, then you might need to pass him over. But if you don't have immediate needs in your starting lineup and Smith and Jigba is out there, I do encourage trying to pick him up because I just would rather roll the dice on the upside of a player like him as opposed to trying to grab an RB3 who might be an RB2 for 1 week. But nevertheless, if that is not the case for you and Smith and Jigba is either not available to you or does not apply to you, Tajay Spears is another one for me. I can't imagine he's going to have to get more involved sooner or later. I can't imagine before long the Titans are just like, we need to get this guy the ball, especially given their quarterback situation now. We don't trust Malik Willis, and let's be honest, right now, so far, it's hard to say that we have any type of trust in Will Levis. There's nothing to go off of, and there doesn't feel like a ton of confidence can be had in these guys. So they're going to need to get their running backs involved. That means Tajay Spears. He's another dude where if he's still on waivers, grab him. If you have him, I know he's on bye this week, but find a way to keep him. And if somebody else in your league has him and drops him because of a bye week casualty, scoop him up. Scoop him up. Other names, Rashee Rice, his name hasn't come up yet today. As long as the Chiefs don't make any more moves at wide receiver, Rashee Rice can be added in 10 and 12 team leagues. 4 for 33 and a touchdown in week 5, and then 4 for 72 in week 6. Has at least 3 catches in all but 1 game this year. His usage has been pretty consistent, not spectacular, but consistent. And again, the other options at wideout that Patrick Mahomes has to throw to are Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Sky Moore. That's not getting it done. And that doesn't instill that much confidence. So Rashee Rice is, he's the flyer in that Chiefs passing game, and they really need somebody to step up. We can't expect Travis Kelce to catch 10 to 15 balls every week, and that's just how they move the ball through the air. It's eventually, even a team as good as the Chiefs with a quarterback as great as Mahomes, you need more than one consistent option. Let's see if Rashee Rice can continue to move forward and progress in his development, assuming the Chiefs don't add a wide receiver before the deadline, which they could. Mentioned Michael Mayer. Again, speculative ad in deeper leagues. Not a guy I'm necessarily looking to grab at the expense of dropping another player that I feel pretty good about for the rest of the season. But he could be streamed this week in a great matchup against Chicago. Mayer is on that list of tight ends, though, where it's just like if he has a good game one week, you're not surprised if he doesn't do anything the next week. And that's not a knock on Michael Mayer. That is just how the tight end position goes. Unless your name is Travis Kelce, that your production goes up and down. Sometimes you have good weeks, sometimes you have bad weeks. Curtis Samuel, Josh Downs, Brandon Cooks, solid wide receivers that are probably available on waivers. Any one of these guys is worth a pickup. I guess I would say Samuel's number one just because he has been the most involved recently. And I mean, Jahan Dotson is not doing much of anything so far. That could still turn around. But he got goose-egged week 6. He had one target and didn't catch it. One target. Didn't catch it. His high water mark for yards this year in a game is 40, and that was in week 1. His high water mark of what his rank as far as finish among wide receivers in a single week this season, his high water mark is the wide receiver 29. His best performance was a meh wide receiver 3 performance. And the only reason that happened was because he caught a touchdown like as time expired in regulation. Now, it still happened, whatever. I'm not taking the stat away from him, just pointing out like he's a desperation touchdown at the end of the game away from being like the wide receiver 70 on the season. Dotson is an easy drop, and I would say if you need a spot start at wide receiver, if you start 3 receivers or a flex, Curtis Samuel is perfectly fine. You can absolutely grab him. You can absolutely grab him. That being said, guys like Josh Downs, Brandon Cooks is in decline, no doubt at this stage of his career, but he did catch a touchdown Monday night. They need a consistent option opposite CeeDee Lamb. They traded for Cooks this past offseason, so you would think that they want him to be that guy. They didn't give up a ton to get him, but still, Cooks is an established player in this league. He's longer in the tooth at this point, but, still has decent speed, should still be able to take the top off here and there. Cooks is viable as an ad, but he's going to be volatile as a start. But he's a vet, presumably attached to an offense that you feel better about. And then as for Josh Downs, he's been a wide receiver 3, I think, since week 3 on the season. I mean, he's leapfrogged Alec Pierce, at least on the Colts. 5 for 21 and a touchdown this past week. 6 for 97 back in week 5. And he had an 8-catch outing week 3. I mean, Downs is also perfectly viable. If you need a wide receiver and you miss out on Curtis Samuel or Rashee Rice, Josh Downs is a fine pivot, is a fine swerve. And then just to bring it home with a couple of running backs, Craig Reynolds is probably fine as an ad. Again, David Montgomery is expected to miss at least one game, and it sounds like it could be more than one game. Uh, Jahmyr Gibbs is trending in the right direction, but he's been dealing with a hamstring injury himself. So Craig Reynolds behind that good offensive line is probably a viable flex play if you're desperate at running back or running back and wide receiver in general, whether it's because of injuries or bye week or some combination of the two. Craig Reynolds is fine. As for the Rams, I guess Zach Evans is going to lead that backfield, but I'm probably not going out of my way to add any of those dudes until I see how things shake out. I can only imagine that Zach Evans, has their draft pick this year, is somebody that they want to get involved. But Darrell Henderson is a vet who knows that system. And Royce Freeman is too, I think. Evans might have the most pop as the younger player, as the rookie, but he also hasn't had a role thus far. And that's with the Rams having traded away Cam Akers after the start of the season. So I don't have a ton of confidence in that situation. That is the one where I would probably say go ahead and avoid that one. If you're desperate for a running back play, I would say the guy is probably Craig Reynolds for this week. I believe they're back at home. The Lions are. They are not, excuse me. They are on the road against Baltimore. It's not a terrible matchup, especially with the Lions offensive line. They can neutralize a lot of good defensive lines. So yeah, if you need a desperate flex play at run or desperate running back play in general, Craig Reynolds is fine. Him over the Rams running backs. All right, let's see. A few more questions have popped up into the chat, so I am happy to get to those. Appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out. Let me get Nemo first as one of my members, but I will get to everybody else. So please sit tight, and I will make sure to get everybody. You're sending Kel. Okay, we're just gonna pile on somebody. That's fine. You have to send Kelsey, and you get Elijah Moore, Ferguson, and Josh Palmer. Dude, this is what I do in these situations. When I get a garbage offer like that, I just send it right back to them. Like, ask for their best player and offer a bunch of shit. Like, offer a bunch of slop. Like, if you can't be serious. Is that person serious? That's embarrassing. Ask for whoever their best player is and offer like the last guy on your bench as like a nice little middle finger to that person. Like, that's a joke. That's embarrassing. What is wrong with some people? All right. Now, let's see. Would I trade Pollard and acquire Bijan? I probably would. Pollard had a nice showing last night in a great matchup. He went over 100 yards from scrimmage. He did his thing. He was a top 12 running back for the second time this year and a top 15 running back for the fourth time this year out of 6 attempts. Did it on the back of 6 catches for 80 yards. 60 of those receiving yards came on one play. I like Pollard. I do think I like Bijan a little bit more. Not a lot more, but a little bit more. And so if it's a 1-for-1 swap, I'm okay with acquiring Bijan. If it's a 1-for-1 swap, I'm okay with acquiring Bijan for Pollard. If I don't have to give anything else up, if I don't have to give up a wide receiver 3, which I don't want to do, like I would want to do a 1-for-1 trade, I think that's fine. Yeah, I guess I'd rather have Bijan. He's splitting a lot of work with Tyler Algier, but it's clear who the better player is, who the best player is, and who they want to get the ball to. you know, especially throwing it to him. If it's standard scoring, maybe not, maybe not as enticing, but Bijan is a pretty safe threat to catch 4 or 5 balls any given week. And for me, that's a difference maker. Yeah, I'm okay with acquiring. If you can trade away Pollard and get Bijan, I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. All right, let's see. We got a 1-5 team, second highest. All right, so you've just been the victim of some really bad luck. That just sucks. That's just yeah, that just sucks. I mean, I'm not. I don't want to just say like that's just how it goes. That's the name of the game. That or like that's just like the luck of the draw sometimes. But it truly is like sometimes it's just unlucky, and that's what sucks about playing this game. Sometimes, like you've built a good team. If you've scored the second most points in the league, you've built a good team. Um, and there are modern ways to work around this. The problem is, I feel like most of us, a lot of us, play in leagues where we play with people who are traditionalists. They don't want to change. They don't want to make any major changes to how we structure these leagues and how we do scoring and all that stuff. They want to keep things the way it is. Your head-to-head schedule is your head-to-head schedule, and that's just how that's it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's just the hand you're dealt. There are solutions to work around this. League median scoring is one of them. Automatically giving the last playoff spot to the team in the bottom six that has scored the most points. Like if the team in the league that has scored the most points is on the outside in when the playoffs arrive. I know there are some leagues they now give the last playoff spot instead of whoever's got the best record, they give it to the team on the outside looking in that has scored the most points. So there are different ways to address that. You're talking about a situation where you have to get a league on board with a massive rule change, and that can usually be a difficult thing to do. A lot of times that's not something people are interested in. There are ways to work around that. But anyway, these are off-season talking points. As far as what you can do now, uh, without knowing who your running backs are, I mean, yeah, I mean, I would encourage, yeah, look for trade opportunities. If you're 1-5 and yeah, like, yes, you've scored a lot of points, but also, guys have been in and out of the lineup due to injury, or it's just been an inconsistent season. If it's been an inconsistent season, but you've built a good team and everybody's healthy, maybe you just stay the course and hope for the best and hope that your luck just kind of turns around and the ball bounces your way a couple of times as opposed to your opponent's way. But if you're dealing with injuries and this is a bye week, look at the teams that are at the top of your league and offer them guys that might help them down the stretch in exchange for guys that can help you now, right now. Because your season, you can't worry about 3 or 4 weeks from now because you got to win this week, right? You're 1-5. Like, let's call a spade a spade. You're not dead. It's not looking good. Probably unlikely to make the playoffs, but you're not dead. It's not over. If you put together a couple of wins, string together a couple of wins, if you can win, say, 3 of the next 4, you're going to be right back in the mix for that last playoff spot or last couple of playoff spots in your league. So it all depends on, you're looking at your team, you're looking at your roster, you're looking at your situation. Do you have a bunch of healthy dudes and it's just been inconsistent performances? Maybe you just stay the course. Second most points scored still counts for something. It's still like, to me, it's like I can hang my hat on, like, at least I built a good, consistent team. I've just had some shit luck so far this year. And it happens. It sucks, but it happens. If that's your case, maybe you just try to ride it out for one more week. But if you're dealing with some injuries and or bye weeks, if I'm at the bottom of the league, I go to the guys at the top of the league. If I have one of the worst records in the league, if I'm 1-5 or 2-4, God forbid I'm 0-6. But if that's my situation, I'm 10th or worse. Like if it, in a 12-team league, I'm 10th or worse, or in a 10-team league, I'm like 9th or 10th, or maybe 8th, whatever. But I'm 2-4 or 1-5, if I'm dealing with bye weeks and or injuries this week, go to the teams at the top of the league and check their rosters and check in with them to see if they are interested in grabbing a player who, you know, let's just say he's on bye this week or he's injured. Um, those might be guys that a player at the top of the league, at the top of the standings, might be interested in because they can feel like they can coast a little bit. They can grab pieces for the stretch run. A loss here and there at this point in the season isn't going to hurt them as bad because they have a really good team. They're moving on to the playoffs. They're feeling good. They want pieces that can help them then at the end of the season. So you offer that for pieces that they have that can help you now. That would be what I would try to do in a vacuum without knowing like the entire team or what the rest of the team makeup is. Okay. And yeah, okay. So just to wrap this thought up, I mean, inconsistent performances. These are good players. These are good players that you want to fire up. Obviously, some guys that are injured. I would say maybe offer Achan. He's on IR for the next 3 weeks. That's a perfect example to me. You probably don't want to get rid of him, but I would take Achan and I don't know, a wide receiver and look for a big upgrade either at running back or wide receiver to one of the top teams in the league. And all you have to do is sell it to them by saying, look, you're cruising, you're coasting the playoffs. Don't you want a big time explosive running back that can help you down the stretch? Because Achan can't help you now. He's a prime example of a guy where I'm 1-5. Trade him to a team that's at the top of the standings for a piece that can help you now. You probably don't want to trade Devon Achan, but there's no tomorrow if you're 1-7. If you lose the next 2 games, oh, but Achan's back. It's like, but it doesn't matter. You're 1-7. Your season, you have to go 500 just to get 4 wins. Your season's over. Achan, that's your trade piece. That's your trade piece. And I would go to one of the top 2 teams in the league because this is twofold. This is twofold. If you're at the bottom of the standings, yes, obviously you need wins, but the other way that you can get help at this point, you're rooting for the top teams to keep winning, to beat the other teams that you are closer to beat the other teams that are only 2 games ahead of you. Anybody who's 3-3, you're only 2 games behind anybody who's at 500 right now. So if you can help the top teams beat the other teams that you are in contention with for a playoff spot, it makes sense to explore that. So I would trade Achan. I would find the first or second team in your league. Yo, do you want Devon Achan? You want him for your stretch run? I need a player right now. I need a guy who can help me week 7. Do you want a guy that can help you in the playoffs? That's an easy sell. It's an easy sell. If there's anybody in your league who's 5-1 or better, or even 4-2, and they've scored 1,000,000 points, hey, here's this explosive, lottery ticket running back that is a potential league winner for you. Here you go. I want a player that can help me now. That would be what I would do. That would be what I would look to explore. He told you Kelsey wasn't worth Jamar. Oh man, is it his first? Ask him if Nemo. I was like, is it his first year? Is it his first year playing fantasy? Like, come on now. Of course, Kelsey's worth Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is excellent. Don't get it twisted. But Kelsey's a first round pick too, at least in redraft. All right, let's see, where are we at? You need a flex play this week, Luke. Probably for the rest of the season. Probably Palmer, just because he's or sorry, I've read Palmer. I read Palmer somewhere else. Downs versus Wandale for the rest of the season. Uh, I don't know why I read Palmer somewhere. Downs has Gardner Minshew. Wandale has some combination of Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor. Both are in the same bucket. Um, the Colts have the Browns this week. That's a tough matchup. So now that I think about it, I actually don't really want to fire up Josh Downs against Cleveland, even though it's a home game for Indianapolis. Wandale gets Washington. I would say Wandale this week for sure. I would say with those two guys, you got to take it week to week. They like neither of those dudes are automatic holds for the rest of the season. They are week to week guys, and for me, Wandale is the guy this week. The Browns are. You can look at any statistic, whatever you want to look up. The Browns are the best defense in the league. So I'm not looking to play anybody that isn't a stud, a clear-cut, obvious play. Like Jonathan Taylor, you probably have to fire him up. Michael Pittman, you probably have to fire him up. I can't imagine you have like a significantly, most people don't have that much better of an option where you can pivot off of Michael Pittman. But the ancillary guys in a matchup like this, I would be way more cautious of. So Wandale this week, both Wandale and Downs are week-to-week guys. It's kind of, those are the types of dudes where we play it by ear with them. We go week to week with them. We don't commit ourselves to either one for the rest of the season. They're in the same bucket. I would say maybe Downs, if you had to pick, like maybe Downs has a little bit more long-term appeal, but it's a toss-up. It's a true toss-up. And I prefer Wandale this week. I don't want to play Downs this week against Cleveland. AB, would I hold on to Dalton Schultz through the bye week? Probably. If you can. Past 3 weeks, he's been the tight end 5, the tight end 6, and the tight end 2. Probably. If you can afford to hang on to Dalton Schultz, I think I would. I don't think I would drop him. Dude has really rounded into form. It didn't look good for the first 3 weeks of the season, but I mean, that was that was CJ Stroud's first 3 games of his career. I think we can allow a little bit of leeway for these rookie quarterbacks with their first couple of games in the NFL. And 2 of those games were on the road. One was Baltimore, tough spot for a rookie. And the other was Jacksonville, division opponent, and Jacksonville looks okay. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely hold on to Dalton Schultz. Put up top 6 performances the past 3 weeks. And this past week, this past Sunday, he was the tight end too. Yeah, hold Dalton Schultz. I absolutely would hold Dalton Schultz. Okay, 5-1. You have London and Watson on your bench. Is it worth it to give up London and Pollard for McCaffrey? In theory, yeah, it is. If you're loaded at wide receiver and you have no need for a guy like Drake London because, you could just pivot to Christian Watson and the starting wide receivers that you already have are really good and therefore London is expendable for you and you can and therefore you go from Pollard to McCaffrey as an upgrade. I don't normally love 2-for-1s, but in the case of Christian McCaffrey, who is a top 3 fantasy asset for the rest of the season, as long as it's half or full PPR. If it's standard, then I'm not as enthused about it, just because McCaffrey loses all that value from catches. But if it's half or full PPR, and you've got anchors at wide receiver, which I assume you do if Watson and London are on your bench, Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that move to get McCaffrey. If you can make that happen, I'm fine with that move to get McCaffrey. Yeah, roll the dice. If you've got a good record, if you're cruising and you want to grab a stud in a 2-for-1 deal, yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that. McCaffrey's not even just a stud. He is a top 2 or 3 player in fantasy football. Obviously, with the oblique injury, that's a little bit of pause, right? It's like, injury. McCaffrey's had injury issues in the past, not recently, but now he picks up the oblique injury. It sounds like it's not serious. We're not expecting any long-term absence here. He could even play Monday night. Even if he doesn't, even if he misses a week, he's still a top 3 asset for the rest of the season. Non-quarterback, top 3 asset for the rest of the season. And he's the RB1 for 2023. Yeah, I'm okay with that move. I'm okay with that move. 100%. I'm okay with that move. I think I have a league. I got off to a terrible start. I drafted Nick Chubb, so obviously that, rest in peace. Drafted Garrett Wilson. He lost Aaron Rodgers. I like I grabbed Brees Hall, so that was a good move. But like other running backs are like Pierce and Madison, which hasn't been great. It's been okay. My other wide receivers are weak. I have Achan in this league. I'm 1-5. This is lower stakes, like a $30 buy-in. Um, I should look to the top of the league and see if there's anybody who wants Achan. I should do that. I should 100% do that. Because I need guys that can help me now. This is one of my lower stakes leagues. I'm not as worried about this one. If I have a bad team, then I have a bad team. So be it. But yeah, that's probably a good spot to, again, if you're at the bottom of the standings, you're 1-5, you're 2-4. A guy like a Devon Achan should be a very enticing piece that you can dangle to guys at the top of the standings in exchange for players that can help you now. And then you just hope that the luck turns around. Just hope that the luck is able to turn around, and the ball bounces your way a couple more times this year. So hopefully we can get that turned around. We are at the bottom of the chat, so I'll probably shut this down here somewhat shortly. Appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out today. I think I got to all of the questions. If you missed a question or if you think I missed a question, by all means, repost it. And I'll make sure to get it here in these next few minutes. I will be live again on Thursday before the game, 6 p.m. Eastern, so we can get a feel on Trevor Lawrence and what his situation is coming into the game. We can get a feel on Chris Olave and see what his situation is. So if there are any start-sit questions as they pertain to the Thursday night game, go ahead and bring them on Thursday. And then, of course, I'll have my weekend streams for start-sit help. Business as usual there. I don't think there's a London game or a super early game this week for the first time in like a month. So we can have a clean 11 a.m. all the way through start sit help Sunday morning for the first time in a few weeks. So looking forward to it. Let's see. Last couple of questions here. You lost Richardson, Purdy, or Watson. I guess Purdy because I know he's playing. I just don't know if Deshaun Watson's going to play. The news, I think something dropped. It was either earlier today or yesterday that he's now day-to-day. He's making progress. He's throwing again. That's great. That's all well and good. All the reports were like seemingly fine about Deshaun Watson in week 5. And then it was like with a half hour to go before the game, he was ruled out. Maybe not that short, but you get what I'm saying. With almost no time to prepare, Watson was ruled out. He's like, I actually can't throw. And the Browns had to scrap their whole game plan. And anybody who had Deshaun Watson, you know, hopefully you were paying attention in the last 45 minutes leading up to kickoff because he didn't play. I would say Purdy just because I know he's going to play. I just don't know if Watson's going to play. As far as trading Saquon and Goddard for Bijan, at, it feels like a lot. But I also don't hate moving off of Saquon in what is shaping up to be a lost season for the New York Giants. They're 1-5. I don't even know what the latest is on Daniel Jones. If there is any latest on Daniel Jones, let's see if there's anything there. Feeling better, hoping to play in week 7. Okay. But I mean, the team is 1-5. They've got home games coming up against the Washington Commanders and the New York Jets. Then they go on the road for 3 straight against Vegas, Dallas, and Washington again. Let's say they split with the Commanders, and maybe they get 1 out of 3 between the Jets, Vegas, and Dallas. So that's like a 2-3 stretch. And then they get the Patriots at home week 12. They could certainly win that game. Let's say they go 3-3 going into their week 13 bye. They're still 4-8. They're still 4-8 with games against the Packers, Saints, Rams, and 2 against the Eagles to finish the season. Even if they go 3-2 in that situation, let's say they get a split with the Eagles. Let's say they beat the Eagles in one game, and then they go, maybe they're able to get a win either against the Packers or the Saints, and they get a win against the Rams at home. The Giants are then looking at a 7-win campaign. That is not going to be a playoff team. And I am giving them kind of like in this scenario, the benefit of let's give them some optimistic thoughts here. All this to say, I don't hate the idea of moving off of Saquon because he might look at the situation. If it gets worse, it's already bad because they're 1-5. If it gets worse, we're looking at a situation where Saquon Barkley potentially all of a sudden these phantom injuries start popping up. And I'm not accusing Saquon of anything. I don't know what he's going to do or how this is going to end up shaking out. But what I do know is Saquon Barkley is eligible yet again for more money next year. He can get another contract next year, potentially a long-term deal somewhere. I don't know that I trust that he's going to throw his body out there on the line if the Giants aren't playing for anything later in the season. He had to scratch and claw for $10 million this year, and then he suffered a high ankle sprain week 2. So, you see the volatility of having to play running back and how dire it is and how, dicey it is for these guys and how important it is for them to get their money. In a lost season, if the Giants are 4-8 or worse at the bye week, let's say they're 3-9. They could be. They absolutely could be 3-9 at the bye week. Who's to say Saquon keeps rolling himself out there, playing in meaningless games? He doesn't need to prove himself anymore. We know what Saquon Barkley is. We know how talented he is. We know what he can bring to any given team. He doesn't need to go out there and prove anything else at this point. If he's playing on a dead Giants team, it's not crazy that he just my knee hurts, my ankle hurts, my leg hurts. I'm going to rest. I'm going to sit out. And hopefully for his sake gets that bag in the offseason. So yeah, if you basically all this to say, it feels like a lot to give up Saquon and Goddard for Bijan. But I honestly don't hate it. I think that's okay. I think that's fine because every concern I just talked about with Saquon Barkley, we don't have that with Bijan Robinson. Bijan's a rookie. Bijan's going to play no matter what. So yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. It feels like a lot, but given the potential downside of Saquon Barkley's second half of 2023, I'm okay with pivoting off of him, with moving off of him. I am fine with that. I'm okay with that. Okay, couple more questions in here. Gibbs or Roshan? Probably Gibbs. We got to see injury reports though. Roshan's still in concussion protocol. Gibbs is working his way back from a hamstring injury. We just don't know definitively if both guys are playing this week. If they both play, then Gibbs. If they both play, then Gibbs. No David Montgomery for the Lions. But we got to see, we got to see practice reports. We got to see injury reports. We got to get the vibe on these players coming into Sunday, and then we can go from there. But, if Gibbs is healthy without David Montgomery, then Gibbs. Drop the Eagles for the Browns. I don't want to drop the Eagles defense necessarily, but I do want to add the Browns. I don't want to play the Eagles against the Dolphins, of course. So if they are the odd option out of who to drop, then so be it. If your bench is just like, I got all these guys that I like and are good and are contributing, and I don't want to drop them, and the Eagles are the obvious drop or the only option who we obviously don't want to play this week against Miami, then fine. I am okay with that because you do want to add the Browns. That's the best defense in football right now. That doesn't always translate to fantasy, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to be the best. And that's what Cleveland is right now on defense. Cleveland is the best defense. It's not San Francisco. It's not Dallas. It's not Kansas City. It's Cleveland. So, yes, if your bench is like, I don't want to drop any of these dudes, and the Eagles are the only obvious option to drop, then okay, fine. But I do want to play the Browns. Yeah, I want to play the Browns defense. They're good. Best unit in football, at least right now. Purdy's probably still a start if you're maybe you've got maybe of Justin Fields or Deshaun Watson, or hell, maybe you're even holding out on Trevor Lawrence or whatever your situation may be. Purdy is fine as a start in one quarterback leagues. Again, he played on the road against Cleveland last week. He bottomed out in a bad matchup. Cleveland's going to do that to people this year. They have been doing that to people this year. They're probably going to keep doing it to people this year. You're only starting your absolute superstar studs against the Cleveland Browns, the guys that you never take out of your lineup no matter what. Other than that, you want to pivot away from anybody playing the Browns. That would have included Purdy last week in a one quarterback league. But against the Vikings, assuming McCaffrey and Debo are able to suit up, and Trent Williams, you need your left tackle. If those guys are active, then Purdy is fine to go back to. Purdy's fine to go back to. Yeah. You got offered TJ Hawkinson and Chris Olave for AJ Brown. Well, who's your tight end? Are you streaming tight ends? And who are your other wide receivers? Streaming Ertz. So obviously that's a very much streaming situation. So Hawkinson would obviously take care of that. And if you gave up Olave to acquire AJ Brown, I would want to know. Yeah, just let me know who are your other wide receivers. I'm okay. I think I might be okay with that. CD, DK, McLaurin. AJ's a stud. Yeah, you'd be getting you'd be getting Hawk and Olave. AJ Brown is an absolute stud. Olave's been a little more inconsistent, but not too much further down. If you need the help, if you need the like if you could use the extra pieces, you want to fit, you want to put an every week tight end in there. Um, you would be giving up the best player. AJ Brown is the top player, and sometimes that gives me pause, but that is a pretty good 2-for-1 return for AJ Brown. So you'd fire up CD, you'd fire it up DK, you'd fire up Olave each week, and then I guess maybe McLaurin and London can alternate like flex spots. Um, what's Hawk done the past couple of weeks? I feel like he's been quiet. Yeah. Yeah, he went nuts week 2 against the Eagles, but then week 3, he was still a top 8 tight end, 8 for 78, but then 2 catches for 24 yards week 4, 5 catches for 51 yards week 5, and then this past week 6 catches for 50 yards. I mean, that's steady. It's good. But it's not every week top 10 production. Hawk over the next few weeks before the bye week gets San Francisco, the Packers, the Falcons, the Saints, the Broncos, and the Bears. There's a couple good matchups in there, sprinkled in with some bad matchups, including this coming week against the 49ers. Their linebackers are very strong. I wouldn't necessarily expect a ton of production from Hawkinson. I would wait. Because Hawk is in a brutal matchup this week, and Olave is on the injury report ahead of a short week on Thursday Night Football. I think I would wait one more week, and I would just find another tight end stream if you don't want to go back to Ertz. AJ Brown he's in full PPR. He's a top 6 or 7 asset. Olave's top 15, but he's on the injury report and he's got to play a game on a short week. And Hawkinson has a brutal matchup against the 49ers. I think I would roll the dice and wait 1 week. That would just be me. I would wait 1 week. Wait till wait till that bad matchup for Hawkinson passes. And let's wait for Olave to be able to get through this Thursday game. And then you can get him on like a mini bye, 10 days rest for his next game. I would wait 1 week. Jacobs for Swift. I think I'd rather have Jacobs. Swift is in a great situation. Swift is in a great situation running behind the Eagles' offensive line. Although they did take a short-term hit with Lane Johnson. With Lane Johnson being out for a couple of games, potentially. Hopefully not more than that, but he might miss a couple of games. Swift has been pretty steady for the past few weeks. Jacobs has been pretty steady as well, though. I think maybe I don't know. I'm an Eagles fan, and I think I prefer Jacobs. So maybe there's just some Jacobs bias there, just because he's just the more proven and established player. It's not as good of a situation that Swift has in Philly. So if you're acquiring Swift and that's what you're thinking, you're like, I want the guy in the better situation. That's fine. But I mean, Jacobs is getting all of the work in the Raiders' backfield. And recently, Swift has just been coming through on, whether it's catches, he had 8 last week, or just some insane efficiency. He's been really good. He's been a top 12 or to 15 running back for like 4 weeks in a row. I just think Jacob's ceiling is higher. He has 2 top 6 performances thus far. Swift has been more consistent, but I think Jacobs' ceiling is higher because of the amount of volume that he gets. Swift has been getting clear far and away the most touches for the Eagles. Um, 18 touches last week, 23 touches week 5. That's a lot. 18 touches week 4, 17 touches week 3, and then he went nuclear week 2, which almost felt like a correction by the Eagles after they didn't get him involved at all week 1. He had what, 31 touches. I don't know that's going to necessarily happen again. And I think they were without Kenny Gainwell that night. Meanwhile, Jacobs 27 touches this past week, 25 touches week 5, 25 touches week 4, 20 touches week 3. Only 15, 14 touches week 2. They got blown out 38-10, whatever. I'm just kind of I'm inclined to lean on what I feel like is more guaranteed volume in Jacobs. Swift has been rock solid. He's been super consistent. Jacobs is a more proven player, and so I think I'm leaning him as a result. I'm leaning Jacobs as a result. It's not an unfair trade, but I think I would prefer to have Jacobs. Is Dak still a QB2? He's on bye this week, right? Well, he was, as it turns out, he was, depending on scoring, he was the QB1 this week. But yeah, prior to that, he hadn't been higher than QB17. So yeah, I mean, he's still a QB2. He's very startable in super flex leagues. There's not a ton of confidence that I have in him in one quarterback leagues. And then I see you have a good team. That's a pretty strong team. I mean, there's not too much more to. I don't think there's too many more improvements to make here. I would just move on from Jahan Dotson. The guy has officially proven that we can sever ties with him. There's no reason to hang on to him at this point. I mean, but you have the wide receiver 1. You have the stack with Tua. You have Mostert. You have Breece Hall, who has officially RB1 season is in full effect for Breece Hall. I think you're good here. There's good receivers. I would say if you want to package, if some of these wide receivers are on your, I like Spears. I wouldn't do that much. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. 4-2, strong team. I mean, just find a guy on the waiver wire to replace Jahan Dotson, and that would be it. That would be it for me. Everything else looks good. Nicely done. It's a well-built squad. Well-built squad. That'll do it for me tonight, guys. Appreciate you guys coming in, hanging out, talking shop. If there are any other waiver questions tonight that you may have, you can hit me in Discord. Second link in the description of this live stream if you're not already in there. If you need to figure out any waiver decisions tonight that you maybe don't think of today. Otherwise, I will see everybody Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, ahead of Thursday night football. Everybody have a good couple of days until then. And I'll see you guys before Saints Jaguars. Thanks, everybody.